What's up, Louis? It's Guys here. Hope you are doing great. In this video, I'm going to talk about avoiding sectional title nightmares, and believe me, I'm talking out of experience. A lot of beginner investors invest in sectional title properties because it's the easiest way to get entry to the property market. But unfortunately, a lot of people invest in these sectional titles without realizing the risks involved. In this video, I'm going to share a couple of tips that you can implement before you make an offer on a sectional title property. Sectional title properties is basically controlled by a body corporate who is run by a group of trustees. If you do not have a competent group of trustees, you might run in a couple of problems. There's many advantages to invest in sectional title schemes. I personally invest in them myself, and some of the advantages might be shared ownership, access to nice amenities, as well as increased securities. Of course, there's many other advantages as well as disadvantages, so make sure you weigh them up to decide whether it makes sense for you. Personally, I use these sectional titles as investment properties, so I look purely at the numbers. With that said, sectional title properties in 2023 accounted for around 53% of all total sales in South Africa. That means that majority people invest or buy sectional title properties because they are so readily available. There's absolutely nothing wrong with freehold properties, but that is a video for a different day. With that out of the way, I want to share a couple of tips that you can implement to make sure that you buy a good investment property so that you do not run into a lot of problems. At the end of the video, I want to share one specific thing with you that can mitigate the risk of investing in sectional title schemes. This one super basic tip can help you to become a really successful property investor. Unfortunately, a lot of people skip this step. The first thing you need to look for before making an offer on a sectional title property is to get access to the latest audited annual financial statements of the complex. One red flag might be that the complex doesn't yet have its audited financial statements for the previous financial year. If that is the case, it might be a good indication that they are lacking the necessary skills to run the complex successfully. Annual financial statements can be really confusing to work through on your own, so I would suggest working with a professional accountant so that they can help you analyze the statements to make sure that the body corporate is in a good financial position. Simply put, a complex has income and it has expenses. At the end of the day, you just need to make sure that the complex has an operating surplus and not an operating deficit or shortfall. This simply means that a complex generates its income by charging all of its owners a levy, and that levy covers all of its running costs and expenses. The main thing you need to focus on is to make sure that the income received is always more than the expenses going out. Majority of the time, this is not the case, and a lot of complexes run with a deficit. A great way to find out if this is the case is to go to the financial statements and have a look at the income statement. At the bottom of the page, it should show something like deficit or surplus, and hopefully it says surplus. Another thing that I always ask for is the Levy Roll. I include this in my offer to purchase to get access to the latest Levy Roll, basically showing who is paying their levies and who is not. This is a great way to identify, for example, if the income from levies in a complex is supposed to be 500,000 Rand. On the Levy Roll, you can see what is the amount that they actually received in a certain period of time. In that same example, if they only received 200,000 Rand of levies, where do they get the other 300,000 Rand? Most of the time that will be covered by reserve funds, which isn't necessarily a good thing. Levies in a body corporate is like the bloodstream of its business. Without levies, the complex cannot be run smoothly, and you will start to see the complex deteriorate, whether it's its playgrounds, swimming pools, parking areas, whatever it might be. So it's always a good idea to visit the complex that you want to buy and to physically speak to one of the owners that owns a unit in the complex. This is a great opportunity to ask them questions like, do they attend the annual general meetings? What are some of the main issues that they experience in the complex, and how do they feel about the current trustees? This is a great way to get some insight about the complex in a very easy and simple way. That brings me to the next point, to always make sure that the complex has a sufficient emergency fund. Legally, it's mandatory to have a certain percentage of emergency funds available depending on the amount of levies they receive, so it's always important to make sure that they have a reserve fund. Another thing to look at, which is also mandatory, is to check if the complex has a 10-year projected maintenance plan. This is where they project the cost of the maintenance of the complex for the next 10 years and account for the expenses that might arise. This is why they also increase the levies on these complexes so that they can afford the maintenance in the coming years. Another thing you need to look for is whether the complex had to raise money to pay for its outstanding levies. If the complex doesn't have enough income from its levies and they can't run the complex sufficiently, they need to get funding from somewhere. And most of the time, complexes raise money through a funding scheme where the outstanding levies will be funded through a different or a third-party company. At the end of the day, the people that's not paying their levies will be held liable for those interest and expenses. But because you are invested in a sectional title scheme, technically you can also be held liable for that outstanding amount. When it comes to investing in sectional title schemes, it's really important to make sure that you understand the financial position of the complex. Levy increases is standard to investing in sectional title schemes, and I'm all for increasing levies, because if you increase your levies and your income increases, you will be able to run the complex in a better way, improving its overall condition and increasing its future value. Most of the time, a complex will increase its levies between 5 to 10% depending on its financial situation, so make sure that you can account for those increases. One thing that you also need to look out for is whether a complex raises a special levy. A special levy is literally a special levy that gets billed above your normal levy account. So imagine you pay 1,000 Rand levies and a special levy of 500 Rand gets charged above your normal statement. That means that your cash flow on your investment property will reduce and it affects your overall return on investment. To avoid all of this risk when it comes to sectional title properties is to make sure that you have a sufficient reserve fund. Property is very forgiving, and if you have sufficient reserves, you can mitigate the risk of investing in sectional titles. This just means that you always have a cash portion available. No matter what happens, you will be able to afford the levy increases, so it won't really affect your overall financial position. Again, make sure you have enough reserves to cover any shortfall or levy increases. I have a property course where I cover all of the basics up until all of the advanced formulas, so make sure you check it out. I'll share the link down in the description, and the price of the course will go up at the end of April, so make sure you secure the cheaper price before it goes up. I also offer one-on-one sessions, so if you are interested, feel free to let me know.